Ladies and gentlemen, dear guests, good afternoon. Welcome to our session, The Region as Europe's Energy Testing Ground. I'm very happy and honored to be here and to moderate this panel with my fantastic team. First of all, big congratulations to Biljana and the whole team for organizing this game-changing event. And thank you to the government of Montenegro for recognizing how important is this platform for the region. It's wonderful to be here today and to enjoy the hospitality of the country and, of course, of beautiful Tivat. Few words before our panel. As a former diplomat, I spent years working for the institutions in different ministries, governments, European Commission, and the UN. And from the first hand, I know how confusing can be to understand institutions and to have access to them. At the same time, being today in Zurich and working for mostly family offices, there is also another confusion from the business world how to approach institutions and what is possible. A lot of different questions, but luckily for you, all answers are here today from the business perspective, institutional, and of course, academic. Introductions are here. I would like to start immediately. We will have 2 rounds of questions. First will be focused on execution, and then, of course, we will talk about the future. Since we are in the Adria Future Summit, we don't believe in get lucky. We create our future. And I'm very excited to hear all successful stories from my panelists and guests today. I will start with Mr. Zdravko Dragaš. For you, the first question. You came to Elektroprivreda Crna Gora from the private sector, and you said that the biggest challenge is inertia of the large system. From your own perspective, how do you balance the urgency of the energy transition from the one side and the need and responsibility you have to 100, 500 people who depends on the system that you are managing?
Samo da se zahvalim na početku ovoga panela, što ste mi omogućili na ovakvom divnom skupu da govorim i da pričamo o temi kakva je tranzicija na jednom nivou koji zaslužuje ovaj panel. Dolazim iz realnog sektora i prihvatio sam ulogu da učestvujem u radu elektroprivrede i drago mi je što je u svemu tome se desila i tranzicija, tako da elektroprivreda u radu koji je imala do sada i sadašnjem nema nekih sličnosti velikih, jer je to bio jedan sistem koji je počivao na ustaljenom režimu rada, međutim naravno sa mojim, nego je takav trenutak izazova koji su se desili, a to je da je neophodno odraditi tranziciju kompletne energetskog sektora iz razloga smanjenja CO2 i tranzicije. Međutim, ta tranzicija zahtijeva, pored smanjenja proizvodnih kapaciteta na fosilna goriva i uvođenja novih obnovljivih izvora energije i transformaciju kompletnog energetskog sektora, ne samo i elektroprivrede, jer potpuno drugačiji je sad koncept i proizvodnje, a i potrošnje električne energije. Međutim, sve te promjene izazvale su i promjene u kompaniji po pitanju i organizacije i načina radnih mjesta. Znači, neka radna mjesta će nestati, druga će se formirati, međutim, svaka ta promjena je jako bolna, teška i treba je na vrijeme osmisliti. Ne smijemo usporiti, ali opet ako to brzo uradimo, možemo da izazovemo posljedice koje će biti jako bolne po privredu Crne Gore. Tako da moramo raditi tranziciju, moramo je osmisliti pametno. Jasno nam je da moramo preći na obnovljive izvore energije, međutim i gašenje konvencionalnih izvora po pitanju fosilnih goriva, moramo to raditi jako smišljeno i da ne bismo ugrozili postojeća radna mjesta i čitavu organizaciju. Međutim, razvoj obnovljivih izvora energije tražit će i neka nova radna mjesta i organizaciji same distribucije, potrošnje električne energije, tako da moramo zaposlene i sve u društvu pripremiti na prekvalifikaciju radnih mjesta i da su spremni na neka nova zanimanja koja nose nova vremena. Jednostavno moramo to raditi, a sama ta tranzicija bit će onakva kako je mi osmislimo i koliko dovoljno budemo pametno radili.
Thank you very much for the answer. Yes, we are at the Future Summit, so we are creating the future in transition, fully agree. Mr. Colić, new energy solution is involved in more than 80% of the old wind parks currently under development in Serbia. So there is no better person in this room than you to tell us what is the current situation with the pipeline activity. And also, would you like to share with us what specifically it's breaking down between allocation and construction? Is it permitting, financing, grid, or maybe something different?
Again, thank you very much for the invitation to participate in this summit. This is my third year in a row to participate here, and I need to admit that every year the quality and the content is improving, and I'm really honorable to be here today. I need to correct one thing that you said. We are responsible for 80% of the currently operational asset in Serbia. So, you know, like from above 800 megawatts that is currently producing electricity from wind energy, we were participating in projects for more than 600. Basically, every 3 out of 4 megawatts produced from wind energy was one way or form done, and we participated in the development, construction, or operation of those assets. So from the Serbian perspective, we really have the biggest portion of experience, but also we did a lot of services in the region. When we get to the challenges and why, you know, we have very big disparity between pipeline, which is, you know, in Serbia is nearly 20 gigawatts, just for the magnitude of awareness of the all people participating. The total Serbian installed capacity at the moment is 8 gigawatts. So if you have 18 or 20 gigawatts application, this is like a very big difference from what is needed and what is actually under development. But again, we also did one additional analysis of transmission system operator of Serbia. They are obliged to issue every year now, after every 2 years, annual or biannual plans about the development. So from analyzing those now with AI, it's you know, if you have an idea to understand something, you can easily adjust a lot of big set of data. From 40 megawatts of application, only 1 megawatt is constructed in the last 10 years. So the ratio of pipeline and the ratio of actuals is in huge disparity. What is the root of that big disparity, and why the energy transition, or I would maybe use energy transformation as a better, because, you know, in this part of the world, transition have a little bit of a bad sound, so maybe it's better to use transformation as a definition. The root is there is many different angles, from the thing that people are trying to build projects on the place where it is not supposed to be. And you know, like in the environmental protected areas, they are building a wind farm. This is not going to happen. Then on agricultural land, very good quality, they want to build a solar project and basically transfer the food for energy, which is also not acceptable for lenders, for example. You know, like we at the end, the ultimate judgment of any project is happening by the people sitting in this room, from credit expert, from EBRD, from private lenders. They will not lend you money to build a project in the environmental protected area. So, you know, like those are the mistakes of the developers during the development. But they are not only one who are responsible for such a delay. We also have a thing that sometimes, without explanation, some authorities simply not responding, not reacting. We have various silence of administration that here and there are happening in every country. So we also, though now this is past, that in the beginning 2009, when I started doing this business in the Serbian law of energy, of planning and construction, there was no sentence of wind farm as an object. So, if you want to ask for a permit, you go to the authority and you ask, like, I want to file a construction permit for wind farm, but there was no existing. Those were the chicken pox, or the disease for small kids. Now we are, let's say, grown-ups, and there is a track record, and those things are past. And today we were listening also to the minister yesterday. They are doing here in Montenegro a very good job. The deal with Masdar is also a very good job. Congratulations on that. This is like a very interesting development, and this is actually how things are getting done. So I can speak until tomorrow. Please interrupt me. Like, I don't know what is the time frame of
Everyone is interested, as I see. But yeah, we have a lot of questions.
Okay, it's a big panel.
Thank you very much for your answer, Mr. Colić. I love how you said energy transformation. Every time in Zurich when I said energy transition or energy transformation, they correct me. And they said, don't use transition or transformation, use resilience. Because resilience means we are ready and we are capable to transform. But yeah, that's some other story. Okay, let's move on to Mr. Davor Kunc from the European Investment Bank, very new in Montenegro, but very successful and experienced already. Wish you a lot of luck under your leadership. European Investment Bank in Montenegro has grown significantly over the next years, but you pointed that the challenge is not capital allocation and access. The challenge is, primary challenge is project readiness. So from your own experience, can you tell us from practice, where is the specific preparation gap that are slowing the pipeline, and what can we do here in Montenegro, and what you will do under your leadership for the investment bank?
Thank you, Nermina, and let me also extend my thanks to Biljana and Sasha and the team on organizing Adria Future Summit. My first time here, I heard a lot about this event. Happy to say that the expectations were outmatched. To answer your question, I wanted to mention that in the morning we had this closed session, the Ministerial Energy Forum, and the energy investment discussions. Zdravko was there, Nemanja, some of the other colleagues from the room. And Minister Šahmanović, in the concluding remarks, said, I haven't heard from the private sector, nor from the utilities, that much complaints, concerns, questions about financing. So indeed, it was not one of the key issues identified as you posed in your question. I would say, also from my previous experience in the previous life in the Commission, in the Western Balkan Investment Framework, even if the WBF is not super big money, but it's still significant, and we always lacked mature projects. So indeed, the project preparation, all the various studies which go into a project, pre-feasibility, feasibility, detailed design, environmental, social impact assessment, etc., they are key to consider financing a project. So the capacity of the local teams here, which is great, and there's been a change of generations in Montenegro. At a number of these events, when I look at the audience, it's very often 25 to 45 years of age, so one should give credit to the all levels of administration, including the municipalities. But it's the capacity a bit strengthening it of the local teams. And then we have also JASPERS. Don't ask me to spell the acronym, but it's a joint initiative of the EIB and the European Commission, which helps with preparing the projects. That's one point. Another one, Miloš and others have mentioned here the permitting, the connections to the grid, so I'm not going to elaborate more on that. But one point to mention is from the previous life in the World Bank, there used to be this doing business report. It had some flaws in methodology, but the questions were right. So it was looking at how fast you can establish a company. Can you enforce contracts in a timely manner? Can you get the construction permits, going back to the permitting, in a different way on those questions? Here I was happy to hear from, again, Mr. Šahmanović. He mentioned the project financed by the EU delegation here, which is a quasi one-stop shop. So if you're a private investor, you would have one point of contact instead of going to several ministries, agencies, in which you would be able to ask questions, pose your concerns. And then a third point which I wanted to mention, and not to be repetitive, something that I haven't heard much here is looking into the new budget of the EU. The EU budgets are 7-year budgets, so the next one is 28 to 34, and the start of that budget coincides with the accession of Montenegro, hopefully in 2028. And when you look at that budget, it will very much, it will focus less on cohesion. Cohesion still will be there, and cohesion is a bilateral, right? Grants from the Commission to member states, and that's what, in particularly Central and Southern European member states like a lot. However, the new budget will focus more on the consequences or the recommendations of the Draghi report, on the competitiveness of the EU27 as a whole, so with more emphasis on EU27 programs, projects, initiatives, facilities, funds. And that's something that Montenegro should be looking a bit more. Its inclusion in the EU value chains. So you try and find the spot for a Montenegrin company in the EU value chain company. From another sector, I always mention Rimac Automobili as a good example, as an example in which everybody wins there. So those would be the 3 points I would point out here. What we are trying to do besides financing, and there are good examples in the region, whether it's Vlašić wind parks in Bosnia, whether it's solar PV in Pristina, where we finance together with the WBF grants. KfW also loans, so Team Europe approach besides the EIB loans. It's also various technical assistance. I can mention the green financing of the central banks and the financial systems. So we will be starting also here in Montenegro. We did it in Serbia, North Macedonia, and started in Bosnia, a program where we, via the central bank, pass on to the commercial banks the knowledge on the EU taxonomy, on climate risk finance, so it trickles down to the end beneficiary, to the SMEs, to the companies who then can unlock green investments. Example one, and there are various online tools. We have the decarbonization tool, which is an online tool we started in Macedonia. If you're a company, you can see how you can decarbonize, get the know-how. And the last one is the Green Checker. It's a super practical tool where you see if you want to have your project financed by DIB, is it green? Does it fit? And you can check with that, is it green according to the EU standards? I'll keep it at that, and we can continue during the panel.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kunc. Indeed, impressive journey and knowledge from your side. Thank you for sharing that with all of us here. The next question would go to Mr. Anthony Sullivan. You've been working to drive the EU investments here from the EU countries to Montenegro. At the same time, you are exploring innovative approaches to the energy infrastructure. From your perspective and your own experience, do you think Montenegro can position itself not only as a beneficiary of the energy transition, but also as an innovative platform for the EU countries?
Thank you, Normina, for that question. So my answer would definitely be yes, that Montenegro and the region can be a testing ground for innovation in the energy sector. I was struck by a comment by the Prime Minister yesterday who was saying, you know, we sometimes want to compare Montenegro to another small country successful in the Europe like Switzerland, which is very innovative and has managed to be, you know, one of the most economically stable and successful countries through innovation. Or you talk about Estonia, which is a kind of digital example of excellence. And so, you know, why not Montenegro? And he reversed it and he said, well, you know, one day I want other countries to be talking about Montenegro as an example for them. And so that's the kind of ambition here that we're looking at. So under the guidance of the European Union and the government of Montenegro, there's been a very innovative approach to looking at flagship investment projects. So this is a very targeted approach to which projects are highly attractive in terms of overall investment, in terms of impact on the socio-economic side and on the renewable energy side, namely, and have a serious level of investment. So a few examples of that to give you a sense of the type of innovation that you can have. One of them refers, we just had the Just Transition panel right before, right? We talk a lot about, when are we going to close the coal mine? Well, actually, you would say you don't need to immediately close the coal mine if you use it as an asset which can be reutilized in a different manner. So there's something called thermal energy storage. We're using natural properties of the mine in terms of the rock, the sediments, the salts, to keep the heat that is generated, the excess heat that's generated by renewable energy, and then release it at the right time for electricity or for thermal heat, for heating, district heating in Plevia. So this is one direction where the technology is still very young. It's been currently being developed in Germany, so we have a case, but Montenegro could be one of the first countries in Europe to actually apply this. Now, how brilliant to actually be using an asset which is pretty much seen as a non-asset to develop a very important area of investment. And on top of that, using it for storage, which is helping address some of the grid issues, the grid stabilization issues. So one example there, and that's a flagship investment project. A second example is we talk about the TPP also, the energy power also in Plevia, which of course is totally coal-based. You have new technologies in carbon capture and storage. And traditionally, these technologies have been quite expensive and actually not the most productive in the world. But this has been developed over the last 5 to 10 years, and you have newer versions of this, like a company called Mantel has developed particular approaches using molten salts to capture this carbon and store it in a way which is much more efficient than the traditional way, which would be boiling chemicals and doing things at a higher cost. So carbon capture and storage, second flagship investment project. A third example is agrivoltaics, where we talk about it, EU has been pushing it, but actually there are very few countries in Europe which have really pushed this on a kind of larger scale. And here we have an opportunity, we're in discussions with Plantage on how to develop agrivoltaics on a higher level, like we're talking 100 megawatts, so that would be 150 hectares, which is a big block, in order to move towards having solar panels, which would be on agricultural land, which again, is a dual use. And then one more example would be on floating solar, which is a fourth flagship investment project. And we're looking also in the north here, in some of the areas where, of course, you have the hydro power. You again have dual use. If you have floating solar panels on the lakes like Piva or Slano, and you have the hydro, you can do the solar during the day, and then you have the hydro which is taking over during the night. So you have this dual use. The cool water is actually making the panels more efficient. And again, this is not such a hugely developed area in technology in Europe. So all of these areas are examples. There are more. I won't go over all of them, of sort of very targeted flagship investment projects that the government with the EU are pushing forward vis-a-vis investors, like Miloš. Hopefully you'll be interested in some of these. And of course with partners like European Investment Bank and others. In the end, we're talking about kind of almost an integrated model. On the one hand, just transition. On the other hand, battery energy and storage services. And on the other hand, of course, a mix of hydro, of solar, and of wind. So my answer would definitely be yes.
Thank you, Anthony, for your answer and sharing all these successful examples. And thank you for your effort and energy to bring investments in our region. Much appreciated. Mr. Vomik Nurshah, UKF is the oldest export credit agency in the world, with the global coverage and many good examples in supporting the execution of the complex renewable energy projects. Could you tell us how do you, as a financial institution, ensure that plan goes ahead? and if there are some interesting examples that you could also share with us.
Great, thank you. Thank you for that question. And first of all, Nermina, thank you for having me. Really grateful, not just to be here, it's my first time in Tibet, but also have the opportunity to share the panel with my esteemed colleagues here. I have to say I'm based in London, so yesterday when I got here and it was raining quite hard, I was thinking that the weather had followed me from London. But today I was telling my colleagues that this is so conducive to business activity, this type of weather. So I've really enjoyed the buzz and the energy here at the summit. So I think, yeah, thank you for noting that we are the oldest export credit agency. That is one of our sort of claim to fame. So we've been around for a long time, over 100 years, and like to think that we have navigated various crises, various sort of both economic as well as geopolitical sort of shocks in the system. And we have survived, and to your point about resilience, we see our role very much as being there for developers and for investors, for governments around the world, to demonstrate to them that we are a long-standing and reliable ally and partner when it comes to ensuring that there's adequate funding for a particular project. Renewable energy, clean energy, yes, the projects in that space have, all projects are complex, frankly. There's nothing that is straightforward. But renewable energy has a number of other considerations. Some of those have been picked up by my colleagues in terms of new technologies, the economics of it, ensuring that these projects will generate a positive rate of return. So the sector has come a long way, but especially for us as a financial institution, and my job where I have to convince my risk committees who rely on precedents, the part of the challenge is to actually demonstrate to them that yes, this is new, but it makes sense for all of these reasons. And how do we do that? How do we maximize the probability of success when it comes to execution? So I will pick on the earlier point around preparation. Preparation is key. Sometimes it's frustrating for developers and for our counterparts because good preparation inevitably takes time. But as I tell my partners that actually let's just spend those extra 3 months, extra 6 months to validate, double verify that the environmental impact study has been done according to the right standards, or the feasibility assessment assumptions make sense, rather than jumping into the project and then inevitably stopping and then starting again. So, but that is a message that, to start off with, for people who may be new to this space, resist that, because there's a dilemma of wanting to act as quickly as possible, but that's making sure that we do it right. So for preparation, the way we address preparations aspect is to get involved in the conversation as early as possible. Our approach is not that, telling the developers that structure the deal and then come to us. We see ourselves as partners in that creativity process of how to best structure a financing. The second point is having the right partners. We have a very partnership-based approach, and that comes in a variety of different ways. It has to do with working with other financial institutions like EIB, BRD, and other commercial institutions. But also importantly, the partners and the parties that are involved in the execution of the project. So one example of that would be we are, while we are the British Export Credit Agency, I'm a British civil servant, we deliver a fair bit of flexibility in how we operate. And one example of that is that we will work with international, what you would deem to be non-UK contractors in the delivery of a project, because our motivation to finance the project would be based on what they're procuring from the UK. And that, again, when we introduced it, it was a bit of a novelty. Then some other export credit agencies have adapted to this. But one of my challenge becomes working with host governments and developers to kind of remind them that actually don't think about a UK contractor or an EPC contractor that should win this contract. So, for example, at the moment, we have a project in Serbia that is being led by Bechtel. So by name, it gets associated with America, but Bechtel has a pretty large presence in the UK, And for us, when Bechtel is working out of the UK offices, that is what we call UK content. They are partnered up with a Turkish contractor who together ensure that in the delivery of that project, there is adequate UK content. And then from the UK content standpoint, we think we are quite generous. In a project, we require 20% by value to come from the UK. So again, that ensures that the developers and the successful contractor gets the best-in-class suppliers to ensure execution of the project. So we're we're deliberately not very dogmatic. And then finally, at the end of the day, we are in a people business, so relationships are important for us. That's why we have Duško here on the ground. I'm sure many of you know Duško. This time he's allowed me to sit here and act as his spokesperson. But Duško is here somehow on his own, covers the whole Balkan region. But it's first to help with the origination of the transaction. But then inevitably, these are long-standing projects. Our financing stays relevant for 10, 15 years. Inevitably, the real world gives rise to problems, complexities, issues, but having someone on the ground who works very closely with our foreign office, we work hand in hand with our foreign office colleagues and our ambassadors. I'm not sure if our ambassador is in the room, but oh yes, actually Dawn is here. Great, hello, Dawn. That ensures that if there is a problem, we look to nip it in the bud. And that's driven by our vested interest in ensuring that the project moves seamlessly. At the end of the day, we want to ensure that we get the financing back because then we want to do more projects. And from that standpoint, having that project-focused approach, working with partners both within the UK side and with the local parties here, from our standpoint, gives us the comfort to make significant capacity available. So for this, my final word on this would be that in the region, we have 25 billion pounds of capital that we can allocate. 90% of that is unutilized. So these opportunities like these are important for us. So I'll stop here. Thank you.
Thank you very much for sharing all this useful information with us, examples. Thank you for the sun. I guess you brought us the sun today. And your whole team is here. Welcome once again. My last question will go to the only lady in my team. The best for the last. I'm sorry, gentlemen, you will forgive me this. Ivana, you have spent a decade negotiating Chapter 27 for Montenegro, and today you are leading the Center for the Climate Change. Congratulations on that. There is often a significant gap between the science and the policy. We today have experience and now listen from the gentleman, from the business side, from the institutional side, but the missing puzzle is science. So we are all very curious, and personally, I am very interested to hear, where is that gap most sensitive, dangerous, if you like, between the science and policy? And what would a climate-resilient energy system actually require?
Thank you, Nermina, first of all, for a very kind introduction. Thank you for the question. I'll start by greeting all the colleagues which are here gathered in the room and are carefully listening to everything what we are saying today. Yes, well, I strongly believe that the most dangerous gap between what climate science actually demands and what policy delivery currently provides in Montenegro lies in just one single word. And guess, Nermina, which one word is that? It's that Zurich work you just mentioned. It's resilience. It's not transition, it's not transformation, but in my personal opinion, based on my experience, well, that's definitely resilience. Because, for example, here in Montenegro, we've made significant progress on setting decarbonization targets aligned with the EU, progress on renewable energy policy planning in our energy sector for sure. And we made progress on aligning with European Union acquis in Chapter 27, Environment and Climate Change, we've just mentioned, but also in Chapter 15, Energy, not to forget to mention that. But what climate science actually tells us today is that mitigation alone is no longer sufficient. We are already living in a climate-altered reality. Yesterday, heavy rain. Today, we have sun. We do not know which actually period of the year this is this summer, is this some transitional period, is this a spring? This is definitely a climate-altered reality where these more frequent climate events, more frequent droughts, floods, wildfires, rainfall intensity events are affecting economies and infrastructure today. Not decades from now. They are affecting our lives definitely today. And for Montenegro, definitely that danger, as you've highlighted, is especially sensitive because our economy, although very small, it depends on those sectors which are especially climate exposed. Those are energy. In terms of hydro energy, I'll refer to that a little bit later. Then agriculture, for sure, hardly hit by climate extremes, and also tourism, both winter and coastal tourism. And these changing precipitation patterns, higher average temperatures, growing frequency of extreme weather events are expected to create more pressure on generation on electricity. That's what my colleagues have just mentioned. More pressure on ecosystems, on public infrastructure, on water resources, and so on. That all means that climate risk is no longer just an environmental risk. It's an energy risk, it's an economy risk, and ultimately it's a competitiveness risk for the entire economy. So where is that risk the most dangerous? Well, I believe it's the most dangerous in our heavy dependence on hydrology, without still significant diversification and storage capacities. Hydropower has been a strategic asset here in Montenegro for decades, but climate vulnerability is making these historical water patterns less reliable for some future energy planning. And we all know when reservoirs are low after the prolonged droughts, domestic electricity generation falls, import rises, and we have this kind of situation very often over the last couple of seasons. Secondly, this danger is pretty present also in infrastructure systems which were designed for yesterday's climate, not for future climate extremes. It is also present in fragmented governance. What I mean with fragmented governance, I mean when we are speaking about adaptation, adaptation in climate theory is everyone's responsibility. But in practical experience, it's actually no one's responsibility. So that's a very, very important issue to discuss it. And there is also some persistent tendency across many countries, not only Montenegro, to treat climate adaptation secondary to mitigation, while those two categories should go hand in hand and advance now together. So genuinely, a climate resilient energy system for Montenegro definitely requires a couple of things. First of all, more renewable expansions, more diversification in generation through more solar, more wind, then grid modernization, more flexible balancing systems, and stronger regional interconnections, where definitely Montenegro is advancing with the preparation of a construction of this second submarine cable car. But I would like here to highlight and to underscore actually the importance of investments in storage. Including batteries and pumped hydro where viable, because in today's world, definitely storage and grid flexibility is no more how to say, optional complements to renewables. It's actually a core enabler of system security. Also what we need is definitely what was just mentioned, more climate risk screening embedded into every major energy investment decision. What does it mean? It means that every new substation, every transmission corridor, every renewable plant, every new public energy program actually has to ask one basic question, and that question is, how does this asset is going to perform under the more pronounced heat stress? How does this asset is going to perform under flood risk, under wildfire exposure, droughts condition, and so on. For example, OECD and the World Bank are actually strongly arguing hypotheses that these integration of climate risks into infrastructure planning is today one of the highest return public policy reforms. And finally, I must actually repeat something what I think Mr. Kunc has mentioned in his speech. Resilience definitely requires finance that recognizes prevention as productive investment, because too often governments somehow reward reconstruction after damage rather than prevention before the damage has been done. In the environment, because €1 invested into resilience definitely avoids multiple euros in some future losses. Just to conclude, I strongly believe that actually this transition is not a simple thing of replacing fossil fuels with renewables. It's actually about redesigning the entire system to become more resilient, to be equally able to perform under more strong climatic stress and more strong climatic pressure. And those countries which are going to recognize that fact at the first place won't become only more greener and climate resilient countries, but will at the same time become more investable, more secure, and security, it's also magic word in today's world, and will become more competitive. And I think that Montenegro absolutely can achieve that.
Thank you very much, Ivana, for this comprehensive answer. I'm sure that we will all read and listen about you and your center in the future years. Obviously, you are motivated with a lot of knowledge, experience, so we are very curious to see what the future will bring. And that leads us to our second round of the questions. So we now know and understand where we are. We know what we want. So the next step is to create the future we want, and I would say this region really deserves. So the next round of the question will be about the future. Mr. Zdravko Dragaš, a huge success for you. Big congratulations for the contract with the master. We are all very happy and proud and wish you a lot of success in this cooperation. This is not the only international cooperation in your portfolio. EDF on Kruševo, EBRD on Gvozd. A lot of successful stories for you and your team. What does Montenegro actually need to offer in terms of permitting speed, regulatory certainty, and institutional capacity to ensure that those partnerships will not stay on the paper, that we will really deliver?
Pa, s obzirom da smo krenuli u taj veliki investicioni zamah radova u obnovljivim izvorima energije, napravili smo prve poteze već prošle godine kada su počeli da se sklapaju memorandumi o poslovnoj saradnji i mislim da sa te strane smo odradili jedan dobar posao. Uspjeli smo da krenemo u priču sa najozbiljnijim svjetskim izvođačima, investitorima, finansijerima, tako da smo uspjeli da krenemo i u priču sa EDF-om kao jednom od vodećih svjetskih kompanija za hidropotencijal. I tu smo na zajedničkom projektu Kruševa krenuli da radimo i to više nije samo memorandum, već se krenulo i u geološka istraživanja da bismo modifikovali projekat u pravom smislu izrade projektne dokumentacije, provjere svih ostalih kapaciteta koje je potrebno. Drugi od partnera je naravno svima poznat u energetici Masdar, koji je vodeći lider svjetski u proizvodnji i izgradnji obnovljivih izvora energije, prije svega mislimo na solarnu i vjetroelektrane. Juče smo sklopili taj drugi korak, jako bitan, a to je da smo krenuli da pravimo zajedničku kompaniju, joint venture, znači da ćemo zajedničkim snagama rešavati i investirati u velike obnovljive izvore energije, sunca i vjetra. Saradnja sa tako velikim izvođačima i investitorima je od višestrukog koristi, prije svega njihovo znanje i iskustvo u realizaciji takvih projekata je nemjerljivo. Samim tim kada su oni u timu sa nama, lakše ćemo doći do financijera. Jedan od partnera sa kojima smo radili protekle godine i naravno da ćemo raditi i dalje, a to su saradnja sa sistemskim bankama poput EBRD-a, EIB-a, Svjetske banke, KFA. I sa EBRD-om smo razvili jedan projekat na Krnovu, Gvozd, i to je jedno jako dobro iskustvo, jer je saradnja sa jednom sistemskom bankom gdje smo prošli kroz sve faze. Ovih dana pušta se u probni rad, očekujemo da će biti rezultati bolji nego što smo ih u feasibility studiji postavili, tako da je to jako dobro iskustvo. Ova iskustva sa EDF-om i Masdarom sada idu u drugu fazu konkretnih radova, konkretne priče, a to samim tim znači da ćemo morati da pokažemo našu tehničku sposobnost zajedno sa njima u fazi projektovanja, ali isto tako i saradnje sa institucijama i državom koje trebaju da nam omoguće različite dozvole. Kada su veliki energetski objekti u pitanju, te dozvole su dosta komplikovane. Znači, nije klasična građevinska dozvola, nego se traži mnogo saglasnosti. Od ekoloških, zaštite životne sredine, do svih drugih saglasnosti, a onda i priključka na mrežu, da li su kapaciteti dobri, nisu. Sve su to problemi koji se rešavaju tako velikim objektima. Međutim, siguran sam da put koji smo krenuli nema alternativu. Znači, mi te projekte moramo završiti. Mislim da su dobri projekti sami, da su nam partneri jako dobri i da ćemo se prilagoditi i mi kao kompanija da pronađemo kapaciteta među ljudima i među finansijerima koji će ispratiti sva dešavanja. Naravno, očekujemo, s obzirom da je i za državu i za sve nas jako bitna energetika, da ćemo imati podršku od državnih institucija, ne u smislu da krše, nego samo da brže i ažurnije rade svoj posao.
Thank you very much for your answer. Obviously, for you and your team, success is a standard, so we don't have any doubts in that. Wish you a lot of luck in your journey for all other phases. Miloš, question for you. You have said that all answers are already here, and we are not living the change we advocate, that the missing ingredients are courage and confidence, which is not the case, obviously, for you when we think about your success and your journey. But for the audience, as from developers' perspective, what would remove the challenge that is most discouraging capital right now? And is there something what government could do better, as Mr. Dragaš said, not only to make a confusion, I have to put like that, but to make it better, to make a life easier?
You took, this sentence was said on the opening of the Renewable Energy Conference of Serbia in September last year, when you know, we need to see this as maybe metaphorically, because for capital, maybe to put it this way, for capital, courage is that Ministry is issuing the permit in the deadline prescribed by law. For capital, Colić is the regulatory body is performing according to the law in the timeline prescribed. For capital, the Colić is institutional safety, if I may say it like that. So, you know, in business terms, capital is in respecting the procedures and respecting the regulatory framework which is given and provides certainty, you know, because all large investors, like Mr. Dragaš just said, they are seeking for that type of courage that they have feeling that all what I said before will be respected. In that manner, on the grand opening of this conference, I liked one term which is, I need to mention, it's called currency in trust, or somebody make this. So the trust as a currency is especially for investors is the essential. So if there is no trust in the system, then there is no investment. There is no investment. There is no transition, transformation, resilience. You name it, whatever, that doesn't happen. So I think that the region gained that trust in the past, and that now it's harvesting from that trust. Though you need to understand that this is also a very fragile currency and very easy to be lost once the investors getting burned in one area. They are very difficulty getting back, and a lot of examples from the region, but this is not now the topic. So when I say this, this is definitely the courage that is needed, and it's metaphorically said. On another side, you know, renewables are not anymore experimental thing. You know, this is not anymore subsidized thing. You know, so that's just maybe to demystify things. The renewables are the cheapest source of energy in the world. Period. You know, like I can bet with whoever in the room to explain me how the whatever other technology can provide cheaper electricity, under assumption that we are building the new one. You know, we cannot compare apples and pears. Nuclear facility old for 30 years to be compared. How to build a new project or a new facility? Renewables are there, so we don't need subsidies. Though we need certainty. How you get this certainty? You know, the government of Montenegro, also Serbia in the past, they declared auctions, long-term contracts, and then you know you get the prices which are way lower than the market was at the time. I will give you one example. In Serbian market was electricity price 110, 120 euros per megawatt hour of produced electricity. On the 15-year contract, the CFD was closed at, I don't know, in the area between 50 and 60 euros, double of the price. So we don't need subsidies, we don't need that, we need certainty and a stable offtake. And we need strong utilities like EPCG, like EPS in Serbia to be part of that, because you know they can offtake this electricity produced by energy, but also to produce their own energy on a much lower prices per megawatt hour. But you know, like you know your bills when you go now to home and check your bill, you will see that the 1 kilowatt hour is much higher than the prices that I just said. So, and this can also give another solution, which is to increase competitiveness of the industries, because if you have cheap energy or lower cost of energy, then you are competitive. We see that now in the conflict time, of how energy is dominating thing. So I don't want to enter into too much philosophy, but you know, those are the line items that are describing courage, and at the same time what is needed for more investments in the sector.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much, Miloš. I see you, Ognjen. What can we do? Energy rooms are always the most interesting. Responsibilities on us. So I have just.
But there is a very beautiful next session.
Few very important questions, and then we will finish.
Not few. Very brief answers.
Very briefly.
We are already very late.
Yes. Well, that's the part of our journey, what can we say? Every energy shock leads to financial shock, so we have to talk about these serious things without being diplomatic, I'm sorry. Mr. Kunc, very briefly, just few more answers, because this is very, very important. Thank you very much, Ognjen, for thinking on us. You have described that implementation speed is a crucial factor. In energy especially, where is the institutional coordination and execution capacity most fragile right now? And what will European Investment Bank, under your leadership, do to strengthen that situation? Thank you.
I'll be very brief. First, to give praise to EPCG, but also CGS on their very ambitious, positively ambitious investment plans. It's 650 million in case of EPCG and 200 million in case of CGS in the next 4 or 5 years. A lot of it already being realized when it comes to EPCG. On these G2G contracts, some colleagues have some concerns, questions. My personal view, not institutional, but personal view, is that in a number of cases, these are good developments. What I mentioned earlier about being included in the EU value chains, I think when it comes to the cooperation with EDF, this is certainly the case. There's cooperation. EDF meets Ministry of Energy on regulatory questions. EDF meets EPCG on the feasibility study, and they meet CGS on the grid. So it's a project which is being prepared well. It's in this exciting time of the initial stage of business development. We are here ready to help. In Montenegro, EIB has not had that many direct investments in energy. It was mostly indirectly via the Development Bank of Montenegro, which is our previously fund, which is the EIB's strategic partner in Montenegro. For example, via our loan, there was 10 million to EPCG for solar PV, or via our loan, Development Bank then provided 10 million for energy efficiency to Hotel Risan here, which will be opened in a couple of weeks. And we have signed this week official signature 11th of May, when the EIB President Nadia Calviño visits the Montenegro, is another 50 million with the Development Bank on green eligibility. So this is to say we are here ready to help. If I can just use one more sentence to give praise to the energy community and the European Commission, since they are not on the panel, and in my previous life I was in the Commission, on via the transposition of the energy acquis, ensuring or adding towards predictability which the investors praise, and which then the financiers praise, because it decreases the risk. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kunc, for all this information. This is your first time here, but I'm sure it will not be the last one. A lot to share and a lot to learn from you. Please a little bit patience in the last rows. This is very important. And today we have, in this second round of the questions, opportunity to listen about the visions. And to first panel before us were also late. That's why we are a bit late. Thank you. Thank you, Ognjen. Anthony, short question for you. You presented several high potential flagship projects. Very, very fast. What are the critical barriers that must be tackled to make these investments ready?
Thank you, Nomina. I feel no pressure at all right now. I will side with the lady versus the gentleman.
Thank you.
So thank you, Nomina. This is actually maybe a very focused way that we see through this accelerating investment in Montenegro project to address barriers is through the flagship investment projects. And of course, the first is to have the right partners. So it's really important to be working closely with EPCG. Very good to see the leadership present here, and with the Ministry of Energy in a collaborative manner. So that's a kind of a basic starting point. But maybe I'll say, like, there's 3 or 4 dimensions here. The first is policy, fundamental. And the thing is, it's not sort of general policy following the EC acquis or the EU acquis. It's specific to the projects and the sectors. So 2 examples. One, as I mentioned, the thermal energy storage, and actually there was a mention also about just simply battery energy services is in general. If you want to develop battery systems in Montenegro, you need to have it inscribed in the law as to what is the pricing of these services, the auxiliary services, which is not yet the case. So this is really an emergency to get this through so that business can have clarity on the future of the pricing, and they can do business plans, they can move forward. That's not the case today. So that's one example. A second example here mentioned agrivoltaics, right? So this is beautiful on paper to say you're going to put solar panels on agricultural land, but if the agricultural law says you can't put anything else but agriculture on agricultural land, then you're blocked, right? So currently, updating the agricultural law, which is something that's happening as we speak with Ministry of Agriculture. As soon as the draft law is out, how do you incorporate the agrivoltaics dimension here so you can allow solar panels to go on, because it makes sense, and there's an European standard for that. So policy is one, and there's something called policy accelerator. Imagine 10 people in a room, government officials, business, and other, who are just making this happen. A second dimension is skills. We talk a lot about sort of skill gaps in innovative sectors and areas. It's difficult to find those skills, especially in Montenegro, but you want people to have local jobs here who benefit from these investments. So we have a second thing, which is we call sector skills accelerators. And here it involves companies. So companies working jointly, bringing their skills and developing courses, one-day courses, two-day courses, thermal energy storage, that will be one of the first in Plevia, spending 1 to 2 days, focusing only on the techniques and the technologies around thermal energy storage, and dedicated to Montenegrins. So that's the kind of second thing, is the skills gap. A third, I think, was mentioned by Davor, which is the kind of the slow process of a permitting, and the fact that there is now a one-stop shop which is in place, which is specific to renewable energies, and that's with also the support of EPCG and Ministry of Energy. That's the third thing, which is just shortening that time frame and having someone in the Ministry of Energy who's following this, so investors can see, okay, I stand here, this is where my investment is, because it can take 2 years. And then lastly, I'll just mention something which is not mentioned enough in terms of barriers, is the whole point about communication. Because what happens is when you have innovative project, people don't like change, they don't like innovation actually, because it means change, right? And many projects fail, including in Montenegro, simply because people haven't been fully informed, and they see it as a barrier, something that's going to change their life in a negative manner. So extremely important that for all these flagship investment projects, we have early consultations with the citizens locally, the communities, to make them understand you're going to create more jobs, it's going to have more impact, a positive impact on even the air in Plevia. This type of communication happens very early, and not 2 years later, once the project is about completed.
Well,
so
please allow me to thank to my dear guests. With leaders like you, I guess region is ready. Energy matters. Obviously, we don't have enough time. Thank you very much for your knowledge, for your energy. Thank you for your trust, and let's work.
Thank you, Nabila.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.